Here's all the problems. I'm not sure it will, but we'll have to wait and see. The question I have is, what is the status of the community policing program that we told you about last week? And we said it really, in effect, does not exist any longer. The millage money you renewed in August for the community policing program, really is being misspent. It's being allocated to other police activities. The fact of the matter is, when you talk to people in the know over there in the police department and what have you, there's a total breakdown of the Flint Police Department. Now most of those guys over there are good cops. They want to do the right thing, but they're getting very little direction at the top, they say. The programs that they're supposed to be in, like community policing, they're not in. They're out writing reports on traffic accidents. This is crazy. That's one thing. Then you have 911, and of course we said the community policing is a program where the cops are kind of like on a beat. They know the people in the community, they participate in programs, they go to meetings, they set up neighborhood watch clubs, crime watch clubs. So they do all these things, and they're not doing them now. In fact, they've been prohibited from doing them. People calling in, they want cops to show up at meetings to help put together a neighborhood crime watch. They can't go. Another problem that we have is the 911 people really don't know the operation or the layout of the city. They get a call from the north end needing help. They call the cops from the south end. They got people on the east and the west side that are much closer. Could be there much earlier. Say it's 10 minutes to come from the south. They can be there in 5 and they're not called. Because these people don't know where they are. Not because of the cops, because these 911 people don't know what's going on. They don't even understand where these officers should be or where they are. And they've been told where they are. And another thing is the 911 is not prioritizing. They're doing things by number. If there's a shooting, let's say, in the north end that comes in 2 minutes after an property damage automobile accident in the west side, if the west side property damage came in first, the cops are dispatched there rather than the shooting that's going on in the north end. That's ridiculous, but it's happening. You ask those cops, they'll tell you that. Something has to be done about that 911 operation. Well, anyway. Now, where does the community policing program stand? At this press conference this week that was held by Williamson and his people and the union people and the NAACP, our reporter asked the question of Chief Hagler, what's the situation? What's the status of the community police program? Now keep in mind, this is a program that we're paying millions of dollars a year for, that we've set aside special millage for, because we, the citizens of this community, the taxpayers, believe in the program, which is the concept of having a police officer almost similar to on a beat, walking it, riding a bike, or in a patrol car circling in a certain area, so he knows the community, he knows the people in the community, he's working with the people in the community, he's shutting down drug houses, he's shutting down houses of prostitution, gambling houses, all of this being done because he knows the area, he knows where these places are. That's the whole idea of community police, working with the people themselves in the community. That is not being done, in my estimation. Now, our reporter asked that question of Hagler. Here's the question, and here's his answer.
We don't decide who has what position. We decide whether you need to do what you're supposed to do to satisfy this community.
What is the status of community policing? Are the community police officers going to continue to patrol, or are they going to be able to go back to their, what we passed the millage for?
Well, community policing began to change many years ago, but when you look at the fact that during the time that Mr. Kurtz was here in the financial emergency, we lost, I don't know, what was it, 80 to 100 patrol officers and probably 20 supervisors up and down the chain of command. When you have a radical restructuring of the police department by people that have to do things for accounting reasons and don't take into full consideration the impact, then you have to make changes to answer the 911 calls for service. So, you know, we still have community policing officers, and it's a neighborhood policing millage, and we are following the millage guidelines for what the millage allows us to expend the money on, and that is neighborhood policing. And we have officers assigned to neighborhoods and quadrants of the city. Does it exist the same way it did in the original fashion in the 1970s when it was brought on? No, it doesn't. Does it exist the same way in the 80s when it was progressing then, when we had some layoffs? It's not the exact same, but you have to roll with the times and with the funding availability that you have and the resources that you have. So, you know, they still attend meetings, block clubs, crime watch meetings. They're still forming block clubs, crime watches, and they're still doing their best to attend to the citizens' needs. And we're going to continue to do that as best we can with the resources that we have.
Haven't many of these officers been denied the opportunity to interact with the community?
Not that I'm aware of.
Where would we find these guidelines for community policing that you're referring to? I mean, I have the village request, but where would I find this guideline?
What I'm talking about is we're following the, you're talking about interdepartment memos or something, or?
Well, you said you were following the guidelines for neighborhood policing.
We're not violating anything in the village request by the way that we're policing the city of Flint with our neighborhood policing officers. We have officers assigned to 2 different shifts on community policing, and then we also have the primary target team, which is now part of community policing. It's the impact part of community policing that they take the information that is developed by the community policing officers or that come from city council or other citizens' complaints, and they go out and they target those areas. Right now, we have a need for response to calls for 911 service to answer them promptly, for the benefit of our citizens, and that's our primary focus right now.
You know, he says, when she asks, are these police officers being told they can't appear at these meetings? And he says, not that I know of. I mean, come on, you're the chief. The police officers are telling us that. They've been told they can't do these things. What they've done is taken that community police money, which does have a positive impact in preventing crime. It's been shown throughout the United States. Hagler even went to Washington, we showed you last week, and spoke on behalf of community policing, how it does reduce crime. And if we had officers in every neighborhood where they're supposed to be under this money that we've put aside for that, we voted for last August, we would reduce crime. But instead, they have them out there doing police or accident reports. Hey, if you need money for accident reports, ask for money for that. Don't try to con the people into believing that this money is being used in a certain way that they support, because it's not being done. There is no guidelines that he's talking about. He doesn't even know any guidelines. Here's a report It says, in the midst of the storm prepared by the African American Police Officers League. It's pretty revealing. It says lack of vision of leadership, and it mentions these things. But it goes on to say these things. These are the problems. No strategic plan on how to combat crime. You know, you think you'd be talking about that all the time at the meetings every morning where the officers come in. Hey, we got a crime problem here. Here's what we're going to do, how we'll do it. We have a burglary problem over here. We're going to put together a burglary unit to go over and deal with that problem. You know, they come in and they just get in a car and they wait for the 911 calls. And as I told you, they're not really prioritized. There's no concerted, there's no plan is what they're saying. And I think that's true. And the hiring practice that should be considered racially biased, they've shown you that. Where police officers who are black are being fired for acts that white police officers are getting away with, stealing things, little things, but others, big things. Those people should be fired. But if you're a friend of Hagler, as some of these officers who have stole some big things, nothing happens to them. In the allegation of the kidnapping of a woman by Hagler's friend and person who stood up in his wedding, nothing happened to him. I mean, it's pretty clear. 2 months, you should hear something. It doesn't take that long. You've got an internal investigation group. Then it goes on to say, the department that has become reactive instead of proactive. Officers feel that they have lost touch with the community. That's what community policing is all about. Because they are not allowed to establish a relationship with the people they serve, because the chief and his staff is more concerned about sending officers from call to call instead of allowing its officers to have the relationship with the people they serve. How many people in this community can honestly say they personally know the officer in their neighborhood? There is no officer in the neighborhood. There is no community policing. Nothing has changed. This program, if reactivated, will have a positive impact on preventing crime in our neighborhoods. You want to reduce crime? Tell the mayor and the chief, Hagler, to spend our millage money on what it was intended, to protect our neighborhoods with cops on the street. It's proven to reduce crimes all over the United States, and Hagler said so at a congressional hearing not more than 5-6 months ago. Comes back to Flint, there is no program. Why isn't he fighting for that in Flint, Michigan? Oh, incidentally, did you see the story on the recall effort on behalf of the school board people for this Anthony thing, Lucas Anthony, or whatever his first name was, being hired when he was a sex pervert? Play that tape, will you?
Of a massive recall effort. Good evening, I'm Bill Harris.
And I'm Angie Hendershot. Glad that you could join us tonight. The recall ballot petition language was submitted to the Genesee County Clerk yesterday. The recent hiring scandal in the district is serving as the main motivation behind this effort. ABC 12's Dawn Jones, following this story, joins us now from the Sarvis Center with more. Dawn, just how many board members are being targeted?
Well, hi there, Angie. We are here, first of all, at the Sarvis Center because this is where the Flint School Board meets. There are 9 members total on that board, and 7 of them are being targeted in this recall effort. Flint School Board President Stephanie Robb Martin and board members Herbert Cleaves, David Doherty, Raymond Hatter, Paul Jordan, Joe McMobley II, and Erica Leverett are all targeted in the recall. Shonda Russey is part of the concerned parents group behind the recall effort.
They want to sweep everything under the carpet when it comes to our kids' education. It's not going to happen. it's time for a new change.
The last straw for Rusty was the board's hiring of former Flint School Administrator Julius Anthony, a convicted sex offender.
I just couldn't believe it, and the board acting like, well, the background checks work. The only reason why y'all did that background check was because of the teachers' union. If the teachers' union hadn't been pressing the issue, we wouldn't have never knew.
Originally, Rusty wanted to remove Superintendent Dr. Walter Milton.
They told us we can't recall Milton, so the next best thing is the people who hired him, which is the board.
Now, we tried contacting the school board members, and some were unavailable. Others had no comment. Board member Paul Jordan sent us this statement. He says whether he is on the board for another 3 months or 3 years, he will continue to do his best to work for an effective educational system in Flint. Now, the Elections Commission has up to 20 days to approve the recall ballot language against Jordan and the other 6 Flint school board members. For now, we are live in Flint. Dawn Jones, ABC 12 News.
Thank you.
You know why this recall probably is justified is the fact that this school board has been totally passive about this guy Anthony. They should be up in arms that this fellow was brought in here. They should be speaking to the prosecuting attorney saying, we want prosecution of this guy who came in here and did not register as a sex offender, which is a violation of Michigan state law, a 4-year felony. And when you get a shot at a pedophile like this, a man who was arrested in Georgia for sexually assaulting a 3-year-old boy, this guy deserves to be in jail, and when you get a shot at him, he should go to jail. We have had no movement on that case yet. We talked to the prosecutor last week. He said he's looking at it again. Well, some people say, well, he's out of sight, out of mind. Well, he's just gone to another community. And like we said last week, it's the George Creer case all over again. We're just transferring the property or the problem to another community where little kids may be assaulted. We have an obligation to every kid, wherever they live and wherever they go to school. And if we can prosecute this guy, he should be prosecuted. Incidentally, do we have time to show you that roundup tape? Can you put that on?
500 convicted sex offenders in Michigan. State police led the 14-day operation, which included 125 different police agencies. Officers were targeting those offenders who had failed to register when they should have last month. Authorities also checked up on more than 3,000 offenders to make sure that they have registered at the correct address. As of November, there were nearly 40,000 registered sex offenders living in Michigan.
New information.
Now, they showed 39,400 or 945. There should be that are registered sex offenders. There should be 39,946 because we had one here that refused to register, lied about it, and his application should have registered as soon as he came in here, and he didn't. Now, these are crackdowns on people who are not living at the addresses. This has nothing to do with registration, which has got to be much more serious. You got a sex offender and you don't make him register. The next step is to make sure he's living at the address he says he is. Or if he moves, he's got to let the state know so they can keep track of him. Today's paper. Man held on porn charges. This goes on and on and on. This is serious. We got to do something about it. And we're watching to see what may happen to Anthony, if anything. Just transfer him to another community. Well, our time is up, but we'll see you next week. And in the meantime, we'll be at the White Horse.